Hey everybody, welcome to the Workplace Wellness Series. Today, this is our first one going out, and we are talking about sleep, especially for shift workers, and we're talking more directly to the second and third shift workers. These are the ones that really we see a lot of issues with sleep. I most often hear from the second and third shift workers, I can sleep when I'm dead. The problem is if you don't sleep, it actually does reduce your longevity. So we want to make sure that we are getting the proper amounts of sleep. And it's hard when you're working a second or a third shift because you don't get the opportunity to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. So, we're going to go over three simple tips to getting better sleep. The first one is being consistent in your bedtime routines. This is everything from how you normally go to bed to the times you go to bed. And I know for your third shift workers, a lot of times if you're working the third shift, being consistent on your bedtime is really difficult on the weekends. I get it. We all have family. We all have lives. There's all things to do. But if you can keep it as consistent as possible, that'll only help build healthier sleep routines, but it'll also make sleep easier. And one of the things we want to keep in mind is when we do this, if you do run a third shift and you're generally not waking up till later in the afternoon, just keep that in mind when you're scheduling family events. Try to put them later in the day instead of earlier in the day where it's really disrupting your sleep. The second tip we have is be very careful with caffeine, especially when we're 6 hours before we're going to bed. It takes a long time for that caffeine to fully work out of our system. So if you're on a shift and you're hitting that like 2, 3 a.m. slump, and you're hitting the caffeine and you're trying to go to bed by like 8 or 9 in the morning, it's going to be really difficult. So, actually, earlier in one of the manufacturing wellness podcasts early on, we had Dr. Romy on, and she actually had a great tip. And ever since I've had her on, I've actually been utilizing this tip with a lot of my shift workers. And that is instead of coffee when you hit those slumps, drink some juice. And I know everybody's always worried about sugar, but let's not worry about the sugar on that. We're using that to kind of wake us up, but not overstimulate us. That way, fruit juice, not coffee. And the third tip we have is really being mindful of daylight when you're going to sleep. See, daylight for all of us normal wake sleep people, we wake up with the daylight. It sets our circadian rhythm. And you know what? It does the same to you, but unfortunately, you have to be careful because you don't want to be around too much daylight because that's going to cause your circadian rhythm to say, oh, it's time to wake up. Yet we are on our way home to go to sleep, causing a mixed message in our bodies. But what we can do, there's few simple tips we can do. One that I actually really like is blue light glasses. You can get these blue light glasses. You can get ones with yellow lenses that will limit your blue light exposure from the sun and will help with that circadian rhythm. I really like that. We can also use your nighttime, oh, night blocking shades, curtains. They are wonderful. I like the little sleep masks that go over the face to keep light out. If you're needing to sleep in the daylight, you have to be careful of that daylight because that will wake you up. So, these are just three simple tips that you can implement to really help you gain better sleep. And, keep in mind the recommended sleep is 6 to 8 hours, and personally, I have seen most of my clients do better when they're closer to 8, 9 hours of sleep, and actually, there's been a study done. If any of you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, you can actually go find Matthew Walker. He is a leading sleep neurologist, and it's really interesting, or I shouldn't say neurologist because he's not a neurologist, he's a neuroscientist. They're different. Um, but he wrote a book called Why We Sleep. It's been fantastic, but one of his friends actually ran a study and actually showed that people that are only sleeping 6 hours a night over 11 days, they had the performance level of someone that hasn't slept for 24 hours. So that's significant if you're only getting 6 hours of sleep on a daily basis. So really try to get that closer to 8 hours, and it'll really help overall with everything else. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you next week.